To our first Green Wise Wednesday of 2025, January. I'm delighted to introduce Dr. Alicia Nadiman, who's a licensed psychologist currently working with the VA here in Phoenix. She's also a business owner with Roden and Field Skin and Hair Care products. And she's an author of 2 books, which you'll be able to see down here. Don't Be a Stranger, on making more memorable first impressions and connections in everyday life. And Don't Be a Stranger to Grief, which is kind of what we're going to focus on today. So be prepared, there are tissues in the room, so this could get kind of emotional. So Dr. Nadiman's work is driven by a passion for empowering others, whether through supporting emotional well-being, sharing insight and inspiration through her writing, or doing events and talks like this. So without further ado, I introduce Dr. Alicia Nadiman.
Thank you for your patience as we got a little bit of a late start. I will try to do like the pilots and catch us up on time, but if we do run over a few minutes, I will not be offended if folks have to excuse themselves and get back to where we need to go. Thank you for being here. So grief is a topic that I've been working with specifically within the veteran population for many years. And in so doing, this was a protocol that I developed about a little over a decade ago while staying with a veteran. And I have since used it hundreds and hundreds of times with different patients, both in and out of the veteran setting, with friends, with family, with myself. And it's just a powerful way to redefine your grief and to connect pain to purpose. So just a couple of housekeeping tidbits. So as Melvin mentioned, my books are up here. If anybody's interested, no obligation at all. The grief book is here. My previous book, Don't Be a Stranger, is here, which can be used in impression management skills as well as social anxiety, interview skills, everything in life is about starting with a stranger. If you think about it. And so the paperback's $12. There's one coveted hardback copy, and that one is $24. And if you want to keep notes and things like that, that's why I wanted to have these handy. So, for anybody that might have noticed, I was playing a song on YouTube when you first walked in that's called What Ifs. Anybody familiar with that song, or anybody was paying attention as you were watching it scroll by? Did you happen to notice the theme of the song and why I might have been playing it? Anybody on the spot? So what if, so I'll give you a quick chorus. You say, what if I hurt you? What if I leave you? What if I find somebody else and I don't need you? What if I was made for you and you were made for me? What if this is it? What if it's meant to be? And the reason I play that song as the intro to my presentations is so much is about like what we project out and how we basically invite opportunities to present themselves. If we tell ourselves, life is going to be miserable now. I'm just going to suffer. There's nothing left for me after this thing, person, experience that I'm grieving. You are going to continue to cultivate pain in different ways. Pain, whether you realize it or not, is going to come out in your pores. So, that was the reason that I kind of wanted to start with that. It was a perfect intro to my previous book, and I think it applies here as well. Our work today is to just introduce you briefly to how we can redefine our grief, our pain, to connect that pain to purpose. And interrupt me as I go. I'm very interactive as a speaker. Love what you bring. At one point, midway through, I'm going to ask for a volunteer. If nobody volunteers, then you can certainly pass over that part. But I think it can be a really powerful exercise for you all, especially providers in the room, who may want to walk your clients through this intervention. I would really recommend it. It helps so much to see it in action. So if you could, as you're sitting there, be thinking, am I willing? And if you're willing, then I'll ask a second question, because I did this presentation once before, so I've learned a few things as we've done it. Folks would love to have you email that out afterwards, the sample of the letter that was written in the group, and so then I would ask, do I have your consent to do that? There wouldn't be any identifying information, only the people in this room would have known who did the letter. But part of what's in my book, the second half of the book, is a whole bunch of sample letters. Like no 2 Released with Love letters look the same, but there's a very simple template that we're going to use as we start. Disclaimer, as Melvin mentioned, I'm a psychologist, I'm a business owner. My skin and hair care worlds do not in any way define themselves, do not define each other. I don't have any unique expertise in one or the other that benefits each of them. That said, my skin and hair care world is what brings me to you. The confidence that I've gained, the wonderful strangers that have supported me in that world are the reason that I developed the confidence in myself to put myself out there on a grander scale, publish books, do presentations. So the best way to support me is like, thank you if you enjoy this presentation, is invest in yourself and just order skin or hair care and enjoy just what that might feel like. And I would love to be able to kind of walk you through that. Okay, so what is grief? A lot of people think grief is death. When I first launched this book, I did a book fair. People kept walking by my stand and saying, I'm so glad I haven't had to deal with that yet. But you have. Every single one of us breathing has dealt with grief. Grief is the longing of the life you didn't get. Perhaps for yourself, perhaps for your child, if you have children, or for a parent. Of course, it's the most obvious death. It's trauma. It's regrets. It's the wishing I would have. It's separation, breakup, heartache, divorce. A dream shattered, job lost, moving to a new place. It's all grief. So ChatGPT defines grief as the emotional response to loss, particularly the loss of someone or something significant. It's losing something you don't want to lose, really, whether that's a dream, a person, or an object. It involves a range of feelings from deep sadness to anger, and it can affect one's mental, physical, and emotional well-being. Grief is a natural reaction to loss, and it can manifest in various ways. And I've listed those here: emotional, of course, being sadness, anger, guilt, etc. Physical, being the aches and pains, headaches, nausea, sensations in the body. That book, The Body Keeps Score, I haven't read it yet, but I can only imagine from the title and all the conversations I've had about it that it speaks to the physical somatization of our emotional distress. So I often tell patients, you can deny the pain, you can deny the grief, you can deny your anxiety, but it's going to show up in your body. Cognitive is the difficulties concentrating, memory issues, confusion, disbelief, denial, and then behavioral, withdrawal from social activities, changes in routines, lifestyle. And grief is highly individualized. There's no right or wrong way to grieve. People might argue with me on that one, but there's no right or wrong way. There's no timeline on grief. And so just be sensitive to one another's process is so critical. So how might we find purpose and joy after tragedy or loss? And I would argue by healing and redefining what we make it mean for the rest of our lives. So I love memes, I love quotes. So I do an event every few months. I think it's quarterly. I do something called Nuggets of Wisdom. It's second Wednesday of every fourth month, 7 p.m. If anyone's ever interested in tuning into Nuggets. It's on Zoom. It's something I started in 2020, and we share quotes and inspiration. And everybody from around the world is welcome to join us. We have somebody who joins from Uganda. He's been with us on and off for like 3 years, and recently we got to meet his girlfriend from Uganda in a meeting. That was really fun. But it's just a beautiful shared space where strangers come together and become friends and family and support one another through just life reports. So if you don't heal what hurts you, you will bleed on people who didn't hurt you. People often say, I'm fine, I don't need to deal with this, I just want to suppress it. What they don't realize is what you are denying is showing up in temperament, it's showing up in your patterns, your life choices, and that's going to impact every person you come in contact with moving forward. And the second, say it wasn't the trauma that made you stronger, kinder, and more empathic, it was how you handled it. The credit is yours. And what we are doing when I navigate this process with a patient, a client, friend, whomever, is I remind them that you are the most important ingredient in this process. We're not writing this letter to give to someone. You're writing this letter to heal your soul. You may never hand it to anybody. However, that said, I have had clients so moved by their own letter that they actually read it at an upcoming funeral, or they use it in some sort of a ritual, a healing ritual. And so it's been really moving. They've shared it with others in their family or loved ones that have been suffering. So a book that I loved, Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. A person is less likely to survive if they view their suffering as meaningless. Incredible book, if you haven't read it. And I think that there's such potency in this statement. It is so important to find meaning, hence why the book is all about connecting purpose to the pain. But I didn't suffer for nothing. So discovering purpose then fuels survival, but then how? And again, I'm moving a little quickly because I want to get us to the meat of everything. Am I going too fast? Any questions? Fantastic. Okay, so it starts with acceptance. So this is some rules that I basically give patients, and normally I'm applying this to anxiety, panic, right, when I have patients with panic attacks, but it applies just as well here. I talk about 3 basic laws of feeling. 1, you've never had a feeling that didn't go away. As miserable as it was, as joyful as it was, every feeling like a wave ebbs and flows. Sadness has nowhere to go but up. So sitting in it, you will not become consumed and suffocated in it as much as you feel like you might. And avoidance perpetuates fear, pain, suffering. What you avoid persists. What you resist persists, I think is the quote that we use in recovery communities. poem that I have, The Guest House. This is by author Lee. This being human is a guest house. Every morning a new arrival. A joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. Even if they are a crowd of sorrows, you violently sweep your house empty of its furniture. Still treat each guest honorably. He may be tiring you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whatever comes because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. I love the majesty of this poem because it really talks about welcoming your emotions with grace. It's the opposite of resistance, right? It's the sit down, imagine sitting down with a feeling and saying, what are you here to teach me? Here's some tea. What are we going to talk about? What's the wisdom? What am I here to learn? What was the purpose of this? And you may not get an answer in the moment, but where it says treat each guest honorably. I remember my father, so we're Persian, and Rumi is a Persian poet. My dad would tell me when I was a little girl, in our culture, even if your enemy comes to the door, you still welcome them in with grace and manners. You invite them in for a cup of tea. And that's what I think about when I think about this poem, when I think about welcoming emotions. So we must face it to go through it. And this gets back to what we ignore or suppress, what will show up somatically and emotionally. Forgive me for the crassness of this quote. A patient shared this with me years ago, and I love it. If you are going through hell, keep going. Winston Churchill. And this goes back also to the anxiety work that I'll do. It's the bell curve. Anxiety feels like it's going to consume you all the way up here. You feel like you're just going to get engulfed by the fire-breathing dragon on the side. And so a lot of times what patients do is they go right back the other way. Nope, not going there. And what happens is this continues to feel very alive. And we continue to live life on this end of growth. What we need to do is we need to come down that peak and realize, oh, it wasn't a dragon after all. It was a cute little kitten. And haste of grief, it's not going to be a cute little kitten. It's going to probably be scary. It's going to be hard. The reality is we just need to keep going to get through it. Okay. So let's learn how to release with love. Expand your light by connecting your pain to purpose. So Marianne Williamson. It's interesting because so many of the quotes that I have in here, the poems, etc., were actually my first book. So believe it or not, so much like just crossover as far as things that work to inspire healing, also work to inspire your best self as you're connecting with strangers and leaving your presence in the world, disarming people around you. Marianne Williamson is quoted in my first book, Don't Be a Stranger, as having said, as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. I first heard this in the movie Coach Carter years ago, and I've loved it ever since. So in my first book, I talk about be the butterfly. Be the firefly, hence why there's a picture of the firefly. So when I grew up in DC, fireflies were mesmerizing to me. These little bugs that would just light up the dark night sky, and they flutter around, dark, and then all of a sudden you see this beautiful orb of light, and then it's gone as fast as it's there. And then I run around chasing it to find the next one, and there's another orb of light. And it's this idea of be that orb of light that people are curious about, drawn to. It's this like beautiful, shiny, radiant thing. But then keep moving about. So it's the same here. So like the firefly, healing our grief creates light in the darkness for yourself and those whose lives you impact. The picture that I have here, I believe, is pulled from Burning Man. And as you can see, it symbolizes adult people with their backs to each other. This is often people with their traumas. It's people with unhealed inner child wounds. Hence why you've got the young children inside touching hands. They're trying desperately to connect, but they don't know how because our adult selves are not healed and they're not connecting with each other in a way that is really supportive. And so I love this image as a reminder, connect with the inner child. So what we would like to do is kind of tap into some of that today. So here's the template. That's all it is. It's very simple. So, dear blank, what I miss most about you is blank. What I regret most is blank. I wish blank. I remember you each time you get the draft. And I literally wrote this intuitively as I sat in session with a veteran some 10 plus years ago, as I mentioned. He was really struggling to let go of grief. He had lost a friend a number of years prior. He had anger, he had depression, he had so many feelings that he wasn't naming. He just knew he felt a sense of loss and couldn't understand it. And I said, sir, would you just entertain me for a moment? Can I walk you through an exercise? And I didn't know what was going to come out. I just followed where I felt like my gut took me. And at the end of the day, in reality, my gut, my mind, my intuition is still drawing on years of psychology psychology knowledge and experience, right? Some of the stuff is just muscle memory ingrained in us. Where do I feel this person needs to go to heal this? It ended up being the most powerful exercise, and hence where I've continued to do it so many times over. His letter was so powerful for him that he ultimately he was one who ended up taking the letter, making several copies. He took one to some friends, and they did a burning ritual where he read the letter out loud and then simply burned it. I can't tell you, his depression, his anxiety, so much lifted after he did this and was able to recognize why he had regrets, why he was feeling the way that he was feeling. And he wouldn't even have been able to call them regrets when we first started. He just knew he felt yucky. So he named the yuck, and we also named ways that he could honor the friend, and a lot of it boiled down to he regretted not reaching out more. He had regretted not being there in ways he felt like he should have been. And so it was a matter of how are we going to make that person's life matter moving forward with every person in your life that has lost but not have been in vain. And so the honoring statement that we'll talk about in a moment is I will honor you by making sure that I ask the people around me, my loved ones, how they're feeling. When in doubt, I'll make that extra call. And so it's a matter of making these measurable, action-oriented goals in the commitment section that creates the purpose. So let's see an example of this. So my perfect kid. This was my dog. I lost her in March of last year. She was 16. My best friend, my child, my business partner, as you can tell from our little picture, we have hoodies that match. She'd go everywhere with me. She was my little marketing decoy everywhere we went. She's in my sample cabinet at home. I mean, she was just the best. And what I didn't realize until I lost her was she was also my identity. So no wonder it has been so tremendously painful to let go of that. I mean, she truly gave me a reason to go home at the end of every night. She's the reason I would be so responsible for 16 years. So I wrote a Release with Love letter myself as I prepared to release her with love the next day. So this was my letter the night before. And I shared this as an example of how what starts off as that simple little template manifests into a beautiful full letter. And so your wings were ready and my heart was not. It was something that I found great comfort in that a friend shared with me after I lost Kaylee. The template, by the way, is in the book, the appendix. There's two versions of the template. There's the very clean one that I posted, and then there's an annotated one with a few tips and hints and things. Oh gosh, it was really small on my laptop. Okay, my dear sweet Kaylee, what I will miss most about you is how your little chin feels anytime you lay it on me. It is the sweetest feeling in the world, so tender yet so unquestionably powerful. I'll miss the warmth of your body every time you lay on me. Baby, I regret how uncomfortable you seem. I don't think I have regrets about your life. There are plenty of what-ifs, but I remind myself of reality that you lived a full, happy, healthy life, and that we have adored each other every moment of every day. Your love, for me, is palpable. I made no decision with you lightly. We have been perfect for each other. There are many times I could have been a better mother to you, but there's no way you would be as amazing as you are if we didn't work together as well as we do. You've been my companion, my cuddle buddy, and my source of peace for so many years. I only regret that I don't know how to do right by you now. I don't want to rob you of a single day that you deserve, and it is so hard coming and watching you fight for normalcy. I wish I knew the right thing to do. I wish when your time came, you would just slip peacefully in your sleep so there would be no decision to be made. I wish you looked like you were at peace, yet I see the pain all over you as you try to be strong for us. I remember you every time I see a dog, when I look at my bed, when I lay on my sofa, when I sit cross-legged in my office chair, when I walk through my garage to the kitchen. God, you love eating so much, just like your mama and grandpa. It will never feel the same without you on my lap. I will always think of you when I look at my mother. You really wiggled your way into her heart. Thank you for softening her and bringing us closer. I love you so much. Kaylee, you made me a better person by bringing out a more nurturing side of me and proving that I am absolutely capable of staying by the side of someone I love until they take their last breath. You have made me a better person by reminding me to be gracious and patient, especially during hard times. I was never upset with you when you got sick or ornery. I knew it wasn't your fault and that something was off. I knew you weren't feeling well and needed compassion. I know that when you're not yourself, you don't feel good and you don't want to be that way. You are a reminder to consider best intentions and a call for love. I will honor you by treating people with the same tenderness that I show you. I will look into their eyes the way I do yours. I will slow down and think about what they might be needing when I or they feel frustrated or scared. I'll remember that it is not their fault when they don't know how to ask for what they need in a way that I can understand. I will do my best to understand. You are everything that is good about me, and you bring out the best in me always. I am so sorry we had to see these hard days together. Life with you is worth every moment. Thank you for being my best friend and my sweet companion in life for 16 years. Thank you for holding on as long as you did and for staying happy and healthy for so much of our life together. I love you forever. There will never be another dog like you, and I pray for your peace and for gentleness until we meet again, my sweet baby. So you hear the template as I went. And I combined paragraphs because it's such a long letter. But there's a bit of an air of journaling in there if you think about it. But there's a very concrete structure to how I had these sentences placed. And it all goes in order, right? So that said, any questions before I move on to some tips, and then we're going to get into a letter. Okay, so a few tips as we get started with the demo. Stay specific. So you heard me have specifics: my lap, the garage, the kitchen floor, right? Start slow and keep statements brief. The brief for you are, so I recommend doing these in pairs. With a therapist is ideal. If the therapist is familiar with this template, having them actually take the dictation. That's what I do with my clients. They're not writing this themselves, too many distractions. This is all in the guidelines for providers. In the book, there's I think a 4-page appendix that's a guideline to professionals on how to walk patients through this, because it's not as intuitive as it looks. There's certain ways you want to kind of guide, direct, follow-up questions to encourage the letter to stay very results-focused and purpose-focused. Focus on what you wish might have been or could be, rather than labels, criticism, and focus on what was not. In order to keep the letter focused on resilience and intention. This is easier said than done. And so the best way, and that's why I have all the example letters in the book, is how do we do this? How do we stay out of the "you were awful"? There's nothing honest about you. I'll be everything you weren't. We don't want that in the letter. So it's an art of figuring out how to do that differently to stay focused. In fact, I gave an example here from one of the letters in the book. What I regret most is that I never felt comfortable or safe around you. This is someone to their father who's passed on. I regret that many of my memories, and I underlined so you could hear the I, the my, rather than the blame, the shame, the criticism. I regret that many of my memories of you involve passive criticism and pain. I wish I had felt at ease around you. I will honor you and your memory by forgiving you. And in some cases, if somebody's like, I can't forgive them, by working to learn how to forgive, or how to detach, or how to let go, or how to surrender. So we'll alter wording appreciation can live with. I don't think you meant to leave me feeling uncomfortable, offering grace. I pray that you have peace wherever you are. In your memory, I will strive to create a safer environment where my daughter can come to me with her feelings. I will honor you by enjoying conversations and making memories with her. It's kind of saying by being everything you weren't, without saying by being everything you weren't, right? By saying what I wish would have been and cultivating that with another person in my life that's important to me. So the commitment section of the letter, I would argue, is probably the most important. This is where you're going to identify observable, measurable goals that can be carried out at least daily, weekly, monthly, or quarterly. I recommend no less than monthly for best results. So every day or every week, I will do this thing. I will go to this place. I will contact fill in the blank. Because you want it to, in order for this to really be effective, you want it to be regular enough to stay top of mind. So this is where I ask for volunteer. Is someone willing to volunteer? And again, thinking about what would you feel comfortable enough in a big room, knowing that if we send it out, it won't feel like too vulnerable going to the group. And it doesn't have to be a significant grief, like even if you just think about a life left behind, or a relationship left behind, or perhaps a move to a different city. It can even be a parent when you were 12 that you still think fondly of. Maybe there isn't even a whole lot of pain, but it's about an honoring. So please don't feel like you have to pick something that's going to feel really emotionally charged. Wonderful, thank you. Excellent. And would you mind joining us here at the front? Was it Michael?
Michael.
Okay, everybody, big round of applause.
Thank you, Michael. Oh, sorry, yeah, just cool the H and I.
Okay.
You want me to say?
No, you're perfect.
Okay.
Okay, ooh, well, the laptop, okay, we're good.
You still have a laptop?
All right, yes. Let me get this little guy set up. Okay, Michael. So what I'm gonna ask you to do is, and this is exactly what I would have you do if you're in session with a patient. I have the template of the note saved as an auto template. I just pull it right into my note, and then I fill in the blanks. So you're not gonna see me as I type, because I want you to get the full effect of what a letter sounds like and what it's like for the patient. All right, so Michael, I'm gonna ask you to tell me who the letter is to. So dear,
Dorothy.
Dorothy, Dorothy. Perfect. And for those watching, feel free, if as you're, well, I guess you're not seeing the prompts anymore, sorry, but you'll hear me say the prompts. If you would like to take a stab at writing your own letter as I'm up here writing with Michael, please feel free. And you can kind of try it on your own. It's a little harder when you're writing, but just if you want to kind of get a sense of what that's like to get questions for you. Okay, so dear Dorothy. So I'm just going to read you the beginning of the statement, Michael, and I just want you to finish the sentence for me, and then I'll guide you from there. Dorothy, what I miss most about you is
Your smile and your humor and your, she had a great ability to make people feel welcome, hospitality. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
and I'm just going to offer.
I get quiet. When I think about Dorothy, I get quiet.
And I'm going to offer little interjections as we go, just so you kind of know what I'm doing as first process, and hopefully that's not too distracting to you, Michael. So as Michael shares, and this will happen a lot, sometimes it'll feel like you're putting in a run-on sentence, so I will find appropriate places as I go to end a sentence and start a new one. So you'll hear that in the read back when I'm ready to share the full letter with you. Okay, Michael, what I regret most is
Not having more years together. And I regret the fact that she was so sick for so long. And we were both sick because I was sick with her. And she disappeared a little at a time. She had Parkinson's. So I'm sorry about that. That we didn't have the quality life that we both wanted so much.
Dorothy, I wish
that we had a longer time together. And it's a fantasy for I wish that I could have been around more. She wanted me around all the time.
Would you say she really adored you?
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to point out what I just did there. Because I've done this so much, I know some of the additions that really add that emotional enhancement to what the patient's going to feel when they hear this back. So what just happened, Michael mentioned, I know it's fantasy. I wish we had a longer time together. I know it's fantasy. I left that part out. Without stopping or interrupting his flow, because I don't want to interrupt what's happening. And he's doing a great job of going slow, so I'm able to catch it and think as I go. And that's what I mean that this is a true art, especially as a clinician, when you've done enough of these. So I leave that part out because I can easily take him, when he hears it or reads it back, which is part of the assignment, when he goes back to read it, that could take him down a negative spiral when he sees that part, right? So we leave out things that could potentially negatively spiral. When he was talking, she wanted me around all the time and he kind of chuckled. And in my mind, this is where the intuitive part comes in. I heard him thinking, gosh, she adored me. Or I could hear her saying, I adore him. Hence why I asked. I will never add something into the letter that is adding words without getting permission, right? And I welcome that patient to say, like, yay or nay to that. Okay. Anything else under I wish? Any experiences you wish you would have had?
Oh, I wish we had been able to travel more. And she was very,
Could just use you.
Okay,
You were married.
you were very, spirit of adventure. I mean, having time with me or life with me was an adventure for both of us.
I love that.
She was adventure, she is adventure.
Okay, so I'm ad-libbing a tiny bit here, but I'm still capturing his words, so at the end, I'll give you the opportunity to tell me how we did there. I remember you each time I
Get in the car, lay down at night, go somewhere.
anywhere in particular come to mind when you say that?
I would say probably going to church, visiting with friends, going to a new place, those kinds of things.
Okay. So the reason I'm asking specifics so far, by the way, or when I say what kind of adventure, what specific, that will connect to the purpose here. Okay. Oh, okay, so space and figure out how to move this up. Maybe if I move it over to Word. Is that okay? Thank you. Okay. Thank you so much. Dorothy, you made me a better person by
It made me a better person by being courageous, spontaneous, fun. She was courageous. And time, her opinions matter, so so by being herself. She could set boundaries. She said that.
Okay. And so can you connect that to how that makes you a better person?
Yes, my tendency is to avoid conflict. Dorothy had a good way of putting that in perspective. So I'm not as avoidant as I used to be. I'm more at peace and I can be quiet by myself. That's weird, but it's absolutely true. I used to always fill my life with things to do. Now I do a lot of things, but I don't do them, I do them differently. Find more depth to being.
Great. Okay, Dorothy, I will honor you and your memory by
Being present to people, looking for the small things, and appreciating the world around me.
And notice I don't need to ask in frequency because in and of itself, that statement can be done throughout the day, every day for the rest of his life. So that to me is an unspoken truth. Thank you for being my, what would you call Dorothy?
Best friend,
Okay.
lover, and sometimes my parent.
Excellent. And if you want, we can add another phrase there to end it on, but it's also
Yes,
great that it's
yeah,
fun. I love when people put humor into their letter, because then when you read it back, you'll chuckle each time, and that's beautiful. Okay, you ready to hear back your letter?
Sure.
All right, so now I'm going to share screen so folks can see what this looks like visually. Oh, thank you. Oh, that's right. You're a fabulous bear.
Almost like he's done this before.
Okay.
Word, sorry.
No,
There you are.
Maybe it's his first time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now you get fired out.
And do we have your permission to send this out without Dorothy's name to the group afterwards?
Sure.
Thank you so much.
You can use Dorothy's name, she liked her name.
Okay. Oh, wonderful.
I did too.
It's a lovely
Means
name.
gift of God.
Yeah, I had my sister's godmother was Dorothy, and her husband was my
I was the only one that could get away with calling her Dot.
I met a woman in Oklahoma, Jody, and I said, "Is your name Dorothy?" And she was, "You're the first one that ever did."
I will say, if you're in a group called the Dot, you might also consider a Dear Dot. So just keep that in mind. If somebody has like a familiar name that was their cute pet name or
Yeah.
term of endearment,
Yeah.
you can start the letter off.
And then she says, only you. But I can understand that, because it's kind of like when people call me cats. I'm like, that's not my name.
Does anyone know how to do this?
Only me.
I don't know, I'd be afraid to go.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody else on board.
I have enough trouble with mine.
All right, everybody, I'm just gonna read it, just so that we spend time trying to get it up here. So, but you'll see it when it goes out. Basically, each paragraph, the way I currently have it laid out, is the heading of the section. Now, I will tell you, when I collate the letter for my clients or whoever I'm writing it for, sometimes I'll lump like small sentences into one paragraph. So you may have a couple tops in a paragraph. As you've done this enough times, again, you'll find your style. All right, there you go. Dear Dorothy, what I miss most about you is your smile and your humor. I miss your ability to make people feel welcome. You were so hospitable. What I regret most is not having more years together. I regret the fact that you were so sick for so long. We were both sick. I felt like you disappeared a little at a time, and I'm so sorry we didn't have the quality of life we both wanted so much. Sometimes I find typos as I wish we had a longer time together. I wish I could have been around more. You wanted me around all the time. You really adored me. I wish we'd been able to travel more. You saw time with me as such an adventure and love your adventurous spirit. I remember you each time I get in the car, lay down at night, go somewhere. I especially remember you when I go to church, visit with friends, or visit new places. You made me a better person by being courageous, spontaneous, and fun. You were so courageous. I love how your opinions matter just by you being yourself. I admire how you'd set boundaries. You had a great way of putting conflict in perspective, and thanks to you, I am not as avoidant as I used to be. I am more at peace and can be quiet by myself thanks to you. I remember when I'd always fill my life with things to do. Now I do things differently. I find more depth and meaning to things. I will honor you and your memory by being present and to people, looking for the small things and appreciating the world around me. Thank you for being my best friend, lover, and sometimes my parent. I release you with love and pray for your peace until we meet again, if that's the belief system. Love, Michael. How did that feel to hear that?
Very, very good.
Yeah. Can you share a little bit about just the experience of what the whole letter feels like put together?
Sure. It gives us, to me, a sense of completion, of continuity. Because oftentimes in grief, at least for me, I can speak for myself, sometimes it's a snapshot of life. You remember certain things. And when you remember the whole, it's more productive and more positive. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, and interestingly, as we were reading it, one thing I wished I would have done, and this is the thing, is we have these chances because we'll read it and then I'll ask, is there anything you want me to add? Is there anything you want me to take out? We'll
don't want to make it seem like we didn't have our issues at times. A couple does, but it was never anything that we couldn't address that. So, so it, I don't know how to put that into words somewhat.
So what I would probably do with what you just said is I would go back, sorry, y'all can't see what I'm doing here, but so back to the regret section. It sounds like this would go under regrets. I might say, and this is where I would offer you the statement and make sure that it sounds right. I regret the times we didn't see eye to eye, but I love how we never went to the intersection. Something to that effect.
We were always really good at reconciling.
Okay,
So one of the things, it's not a regret so much, it's working through things. I don't know how to, we were good at that. We were really good at that.
Mm-hmm.
And,
So do you not want the word I regret?
yeah, I don't think
That's
regret
okay.
is more,
How about I think at times, I think of the times.
we worked through
sometimes I
stuff.
think-
We actually got stronger when we did that.
Okay, so sometimes I think of the times we didn't see eye to eye, but we were always really good at reconciling, and
Yeah.
we came through stronger.
Yeah.
Okay, so you see how we're doing that, right? So it becomes a partnership. And by the time, and so after I've read it once, which by
That's
the
better.
way, wonderful, and I'm gonna put that in the I remember section. Does that sound fitting?
Yeah, that's a good spot.
Okay, so I'm putting it right at the end of the I remember section. So after I read it back, and the young lady that we met, I have her name actually on the slide right there, Rachel Gustafson, I met at an open house at Rosemary.
Rosemary Tree, yeah.
Yes, thank you. And she works in the grief industry, and she had suggested there could be some great power tapping while you hear your letter read back. So she's really skilled at EMDR, and so that was really interesting. So that's something I'll kind of pass on to folks to try. I've yet to try it myself. But as I read back the letter, we'll do what I just did. Sometimes folks will have things that they want to interject. Sometimes, often what you hear is just wow, wow, hearing their own words back, especially in the intimacy of just us. It's more awkward, obviously, when we're in a room full of people. So, so this is kind of what you can see what I start off with. This is where I ran out of room and I switched over to Word, but it gives you a visual depiction of what it looks like as you go. If the person is going a little too fast for you, you can certainly ask them to go a little slower because you don't want to miss a word. That's how I would frame that. Okay, let me get this back on my screen. Before I move on, what else did folks see me doing or witness that you would like to address or ask about before I move past this? Yes.
So as you were doing this process, I felt like it was a letter of amends, amending with them and their inability to actually amend with you, but it is to me it's somewhat reciprocal, which I was surprised.
It can definitely be used that way.
Because I did one to my mom,
Mm-hmm.
who I have a tough relationship with, but then doing this made me just really appreciate her more. I just did it while you were doing it.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And that's not unusual. And so specifically when Michael was doing this, that's why we get really specific with one of those things like the regrets of we're making in med school, etc. How can I bring those forward into the years ahead? What do I want to make that mean moving forward, right? So that, because we often say the way to ensure we don't have to do amends again is to be really mindful of our behaviors and our choices moving forward. So what do we want to be intentional about moving forward? So thank you for sharing that. Okay, let's see. No, but I think somehow it went off presentation. Oh wait, resume, maybe? It looks different up here than on my screen. Is it? Ah, got it. Sorry, just as you got it. Okay. So this is just if we had time for a couple other presentations or demonstrations of it. Unfortunately, we'll have to kind of skip over those. So the other really important thing about doing this is to experience sustained improvements in connecting pain to purpose. It is so important to read your letter every day. Every day, for a week, for 2 weeks, read the whole letter, and then continue periodically to reading the commitment section. The commitment section is the part that says, I will honor you by. It's basically one of those last paragraphs, because that's the part where you're going to connect intentionally like you mentioned, with people moving forward, to creating and cultivating the future that you want, and to redefining what you make this mean moving forward. So continue to read that, consider saving it to your desktop, wallpaper, etc. And then of course I list just a whole bunch of grief resources. Counseling, grief support groups, as the one that Michael, you mentioned that you run for widows, correct? For widowers. Looking for any sorts of support groups in the community is so wonderful. There's even survivor support groups, suicide survivor support groups. There's so many unique groups for any sort of loss. So look into that shared support. 12-step communities have a whole lot of different supports as well. Senior centers, hospitals, rec centers often have groups. Peer support groups, crisis support resources. Oh, I'm sorry, Michael, you want to go back to your so self-care, be anything from exercise to music we were talking about before, to theater, to the arts, to doing art, creating things. And it's not even about the talent, it's just about getting messy and like digging into something when you zone out into creation. Memorializing. So the necklace that I have on, do I have it on?
Yep.
So this is actually Kaylee's ashes inside of this blue heart. And so finding ways to keep, a memory close to your heart, and that can be in so many different ways. That was one that I did. I know when I lost my dad, I had some of his ashes put in this beautiful crystal ball that was in my home. It's just kind of like a constant presence. So there's a lot of ways to think about honoring your loved one. And I might argue the most of all is surrounding yourself with people that see you and that allow you to just be and don't try to fix it. I cannot tell you, and this was infuriating, I'll be the first to tell you, within literally hours, days, like people finding out my Kaylee had passed, are you gonna get another dog? Almost with like a spike of energy, like they were excited that that could be the solve to my problem. No, I'm sure not. And I didn't appreciate the question, because what it showed me is they were so uncomfortable with my grief and being in that feeling and not knowing how to fix it. Their intentions were good, but that doesn't change the fact that the delivery was very painful and added to my load of now needing to protect them. No, I need to protect me. So keep yourself around safe people, protect your pain. And by protect your pain, I mean be in it. Surround yourself in it in a healthy way, and surround yourself with healthy, safe people that would allow yourself to feel that, and then feel it to heal it. So this is a poem that I really appreciate by Becky Helmsley, and it's a reminder to be with the people that see and embrace you just the way you are. I'm fine. Today I said I'm fine, not once but 5 times altogether. When people asked, how are you? Then made small talk of the weather. And so I hid behind my mask, the one I'd worn a while. I set in place my bravest face and dressed it in a smile. And that was how the day went, all I'm fine and talk of rain, until someone asked me how I was, and then asked again. They asked if I was truly fine, and I said I was not. And they said they were sorry, that they couldn't do a lot. But then they sat beside me whilst I spoke the truth at last. They listened and they held me as the tears slipped through my mask. And where before I felt I should maintain this brave facade, I realized there was much to gain by letting down my guard. See, though my load was still the same, it now was not as heavy, because sitting and offloading it had helped a bit already. Today they asked, how are you? And I told them I was fine, till someone sat behind the mask and asked me one more time. And though they may have felt that there was little they could do, they'll never know how much it meant to tell someone the truth. And that is like the epitome of what we need in grief, is we need those friends and loved ones that will just sit in the dirt with us and trust that we'll come out together. And so be that for someone, ask for that, right? Know who your people are. Facing grief is not easy, but it is courageous and healing. Remember that every life touches others, and even in its hardest moments, don't let the pain of the past rob you of the light, joy, and hope available to you in the future. So do it scared, do it ugly, do it often, is a quote that I have in my first book, and it's this reminder. This is not going to be easy. It's not going to, like the first time you write a letter, everything's just going to be peachy. Keep writing, keep reading, keep walking your patients through the letters and just kind of experiencing that impact and adjusting and recognizing like how can you support best. And then I love this quote by Alan Kay, the best way to predict the future is to invent it. And then my perfect little baby, may today be your new beginning as you embrace the what ifs of healing by allowing your light to shine. So that is all I had for you today. We made it. Look, it's 1 o'clock on the dot. Any last minute questions? Again, folks need to scoot out. Questions, thoughts? Was this helpful? Do you feel like you're walking away with a tool? Okay.
I have a thought.
Sure.
In the beginning, when you're helping someone through the letter,
Yeah.
okay, and they're in the angry stage,
Mm-hmm.
okay, you're directing the letter so when it comes back and they're reading it, and again, it's all the positive things. Do you ever do the first letter and allow them to say the angry things and write it out?
No, what we might do is pause and say, do you want to talk about this before we get back to the letter? It's interesting because as soon as you said that, a veteran popped into my mind, he was furious during the letter because he was writing it to somebody he felt abused by. So, and this was about a year and a half, so I don't remember the specifics, but I do remember we proceeded with the letter. I think when I offered to pause, he was like, no, like let's keep going with it. And by the end of the letter, he was breathing lighter because every time he would start to inflate, I would say, hold